Yo, your boy's back once again with another one, the host with the most. I'm ChrisDaDon1. Welcome to episode 2, season 1 of the ChrisDaDon1 podcast. I really do appreciate everyone paying attention and listening to this podcast. Just a quick note, I'm also going to be re-uploading this podcast on my YouTube channel. I'm ChrisDaDon1 at youtube.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm ChrisDaDon1, Snapchat, Instagram. I'm ChrisDaDon1. You can DM me messages, and I will get back with you guys on the next, episode. And I like to get in contact with people. I like to get in touch with people, and just to answer their thoughts and their questions. Now, this is going to be a doozy. This is going to be a good show right here. Now, I told you guys on my YouTube channel that the next NBA season, there's no the ideal of super teams that has been thrown out the window, and there's not a clear-cut favorite who's going to be winning the NBA championship, because when you look at the West, there are 6 teams that can possibly contend and compete and win an NBA title, and there's 5 solid teams in the East that likewise can do the same thing. Now, I was going to come onto this show with my graphs and charts and my statistics and player movement, coaching schemes, this, that, and the third, to inform you guys why I believe these teams can contend and compete and win the NBA championship. I decided to bypass all that, and I'm just going to give you my list from the West and the East of teams that can contend, compete, and win an NBA championship. In no particular order. This is not from best to worst. It's none of that. I'm just going to spitball, give you guys some random teams. I'm also going to give you a couple surprise teams that could possibly steal that last playoff spot. Teams that are on the rise, teams that are on the cuffs that could possibly get into the playoffs. So, first of all, let's get into it real fast, real quick. The Lakers, the Clippers, the Spurs, okay? The Houston Rockets, the Golden State Warriors. That is 5 teams already that we're talking about. The Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Dallas Mavericks, okay? That's 8 teams right there I just mentioned. The 2 teams I feel like that's on the rise that can possibly steal those final 2 playoff spots, maybe one of them, is the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. So we're look, I just mentioned 9 teams. I feel like there's 6 of those teams can win the NBA title. Okay? 6 of those teams. So the West is stacked. Okay? When you look at the East, okay, you have to give the 76ers, the Boston Celtics, okay, so that's 2 teams already I just mentioned, the Milwaukee Bucks, okay. I'm trying to keep it in some type of order, but like I said, I bypassed all that. I should have put this in a particular order. The Miami Heat, all right, the Toronto Raptors, okay. That's 5 teams already in the East I just mentioned that can contend and compete for an NBA title. Okay? Teams that are on the come up, on the rise, I feel like, particularly in the East, is the Atlanta Hawks, possibly the Detroit Pistons, if they can finagle a move to get Russell Westbrook. So that's 7 teams already that can contend and compete for an NBA. 5 of them. I say 4 of them can contend and compete for an NBA championship. And I haven't even mentioned Brooklyn. I want to keep Brooklyn. I want to make them the last pick because of they still have a possibility to go into the playoffs, but Kyrie Irving is clearly not going to be enough. We all know that Kevin Durant is probably not going to get on the floor until, the next following NBA season. He's going to be out for the year. There's a possibility that if they perform and can and get deep into the playoffs, maybe into the Eastern Conference Finals, you might see a Kevin Durant sighting. Okay, but I think they really want to take their time, do their due diligence on Kevin Durant, and they rather for him to just miss the whole entire season, including the postseason, just to get an opportunity for him to get back on the court the next following season. Okay, so let's rap about it. Let's talk about it, about the teams I just mentioned. Hold on one second. The teams I just mentioned. There's no clear-cut favorite on either the West and the East. Okay, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about the Milwaukee Bucks? They kept their nucleus. They really only lost one player. They still have the same coaching staff. They still got the Greek Freak. This is their opportunity for them to get an NBA championship. They're not a clear cut. They too can contend and compete for an NBA title. But you have to look at everyone else. It seems like everyone else has gotten a little bit better than the Bucks, or on the same level as the Bucks. Okay, a lot of people thought that the Boston Celtics, with Al Horford going to the 76ers, with Kyrie Irving going to the Brooklyn Nets, they was going to fall off a little bit. You still got that young nucleus, that young core. Plus, you got Kemba Walker. And to me, I feel like he fits perfectly with that young nucleus more so than Kyrie Irving. I also feel like the Miami Heat, they're not done and they're going to really shuffle the deck, so to say, with their roster. But they have enough there to contend and go deep into the playoffs. And if certain things fall their way, just like the Toronto Raptors, they can advance and make it to the NBA Finals. Okay, the Philadelphia 76ers, even though they lost JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, they got your boy from Boston. And I think, that was always their Achilles heel when they played against him. And now having him on the roster, he's going to establish leadership. He's going to establish particularly veteran leadership. And it's only going to make Joel Embiid even better by having him on the roster. I just thought of his name, then I forgot about it. It goes that way, guys. But the 76ers, they look very impressive. And a lot of people feel like the Toronto Raptors are not even going to make it to the playoffs because they lost Kyrie Irving. If they keep everything as a status quo, all right, they still got the same coach, they're still viable to make it to the playoffs. Okay, when you look out west, you got the Lakers, the Clippers, the Golden State Warriors. Even though they lost Boogie Cousins and lost KD, they still have enough there to keep their heads above water until Klay Thompson comes back. And, the sky's the limit with them. And he's going to come back somewhere in the after the All-Star break. Okay? So, a lot of people feel like that they're not even going to make the playoffs. If they're not going to make the playoffs, who's going to take their place? Because obviously, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they see the writing on the wall. They know that there's no need to try to contend or compete with these teams because they gotten better. They kept the talent that they have, and now they have more talent, and it's going to be difficult. And that's why they traded Paul George to the Clippers. Sam Presti saw the writing on the wall. There's no way they're going to compete or contend with these teams. So now they're in rebuilding mode. And they're going to be trading some good players to teams who need good players. And one of those teams could be the Houston Rockets. You could see Russell Westbrook on the Houston Rockets. And like I said on my YouTube channel, I feel like that's a head scratcher. Even though they played together, sort of say, with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But obviously, you're going to have to get rid of Chris Paul's contract to fit in Russell Westbrook's contract. Okay? But to me, you'll have two players And in a Mike D'Antoni system, that they're going to flourish and thrive, particularly in the regular season. They're going to win a multitude of games. They're going to break a lot of team scoring records, individual records, things of that nature. But when you get to the postseason and it becomes a half-court game and things start to slow down, I don't think they have the right combination to advance and possibly, really go deep into the playoffs, unless Russell Westbrook has the mindset going in, if he's traded to the Houston Rockets, that, hey, look, this is not my team. This is James Harden's team. I'm going to sacrifice my touches, my ego, my pride, put that aside, and bring my lunch pail and, try to fit in this Mike D'Antoni system and try to move the ball around to the other players. And I feel like Russell Westbrook, even though I think Chris Paul, I feel like the Rockets, if they would have gotten Chris Paul like 4 or 5 years later, when he was in his prime, and then they got James Harden, beginning his prime, I felt like that's a good 1-2 punch combination there, because Chris Paul knows how to move the ball. But now you got him, out pretty much, you got 2 good years out of Chris Paul if you're talking about the Houston Rockets. And now, the rest of it, Father Time has not lost a battle when these players start declining, when they get older. And I just don't see this. I mean, I see it from the standpoint on the regular season that they're going to win a lot of games. They're probably going to get one of the top 3 seeds, but it really determines on Russell Westbrook's attitude if he's traded to the Houston Rockets. But still, I think the Houston Rockets do have enough to contend and compete for the NBA championship. Okay, the Golden State Warriors, they don't have KD. Even though they lost to the Golden State Warriors without having the services of KD, I still feel like this is their year. Okay, so when you look out east, it's still Milwaukee's. Milwaukee is still going to be there. I feel like the Celtics are going to still be there, and the 76ers are going to be there. As far as Miami, they still have enough to advance and go deep into the playoffs. And if certain things fall their way, they could be like another Toronto, and they could be representing the East. Okay, so there's no clear-cut super teams in this upcoming season, and I think that's a good thing. I really do think it's a good thing. Now, if you're a fan of any of these teams I just mentioned, I just probably mentioned 15 teams. That's half of the teams that are currently playing in the NBA. Okay? So, of those teams, those fans have a realistic possibility of their team making it and winning a championship. It's not a two-horse team league like in years back was either Cleveland or the Golden State Warriors. And it's not like a couple of years ago when it was just clearly the Golden State Warriors. This time in a long time where you really truly don't know who's going to win the NBA championship. Okay, so that's all I got to say today, guys. Applaud this podcast. Particularly if you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, give it a 5-star rating, give it a review. It don't have to be a glorious review, but it's still a review. And guys, I will catch you on the next show.